The wild bounty hunter, Major Bludd, is going to make his appearance in this video, and we get the Baroness's origin. What's up, Beyonders? James here, and we are back with Duke. Hit that like button and prepare for balls to the wall action. So this picks up with Destro relocating his m.a.r.s headquarters, since their secret operations have been compromised by Duke. He explains how he assumed Duke would have been killed while on the run or while being brought in by the authorities. But he's alive and in the government's custody, with information about his secret operations and information about Dr. Adele Burkhardt's past work, along with a device that helps him track it. However, he was able to reverse track that device and knows Duke is currently being held in the pit. He says, "We now know where Duke and this device are. You must finish the job, Major Bludd." Man, Major Bludd looks awesome with his mechanical arm and hand cannon. He replies, "If you keep paying the right money, I'm good for whatever, mate." One thing I want to point out that Bludd is missing is his classic eye patch. All I'll say is by the end of this video, that might change. So my theory about Cobra Commander working with Dr. Burkhardt in the past might be wrong. Based on what Destro is saying here, it could imply he worked with Dr. Burkhardt in the past. Maybe it wasn't the US government like I assumed who funded it, but him. Or maybe he became aware of the project and approached her about it at some point. Maybe we'll find out in the future, we'll have to wait and see. At the pit, General Hawk informs Rock and Roll and Stalker that prison transport is en route. Now, they both explain to Hawk how none of this sits right with them. They feel it's wrong that Duke, such a highly decorated soldier, is locked up in the pit, and mention that if Duke was in top shape, they probably wouldn't have been able to bring him in at all. That is pretty cool and lets us know that Joshua Williamson is making it clear to us that Duke is the best of the best. Stalker and Rock and Roll also point out that Duke is on edge. He has an internal battle going on. In the prison cells, the Baroness continues to try to make a deal with Duke, trying to get him to work together and escape the pit. But Duke is just ignoring her. Clutch interrupts, basically telling her that Duke isn't in the mood to talk and to shut up. The Baroness gets pissed and tells Clutch that if he knew who she was, he wouldn't dare talk to her like that. Duke interrupts and says, "I know who you are, Anastasia Cisarovna." He explains her entire background to her, that she came from a wealthy family and went to expensive schools. Still, eventually, she got bored with high society life and joined the Eastern European Intelligence Agency doing off-the-books work. She was trained to fly, hide in plain sight, and kill when needed. Then, for some unknown reason, went solo and became a terrorist. It's because of her background and reputation that she earned the codename the Baroness. She asks Duke how he knows all that about her, and Duke answers that she's had run-ins with buddies of his, and they all said the same thing about her, that she was misguided. Now, the Baroness and Duke are going to have a significant debate here about trusting the system and the government. The Baroness says she quit the system, unlike Duke, who still trusts it even though they have him locked up here. Duke reveals he believes now it's best to let Stalker and Rock and Roll take him to Hawk so he can explain everything and convince him he was right. The Baroness argues that's just him giving up, which pisses off Duke for a moment. Now, the Baroness thinks that rise she got out of Duke will be enough to manipulate him and push him to agree to escape. However, Clutch makes it clear that isn't going to work. He explains that Duke is pissed, but he hasn't and will never betray his duties to his country because it's in his blood, that he comes from a whole family that has fought for America in every war in every country. An American hero made in America by America. The Baroness argues that's what the system's machine does, is turn you into a soldier and puts you out on the battlefield so they can chew you up and spit you out after they're done with you. That if Duke is such an American hero, what did he see that made him turn on his people and make them lock him up here? Duke's answer to her echoes what General Hawk said to him in the first video. That's classified. He reveals nothing about the day he met Starscream. And I think he does this because even though in his mind, m.a.r.s is the company behind the creation of the giant robot, aka Starscream, but in the back of his mind, there's still a thought that the US government in some way is involved. So revealing the details of that day to a known terrorist, he knows could harm the US government in some way. The Baroness laughs at how, even after everything he's been through, Duke is still protecting his country and living by the ideals they instilled into him. She poses significant questions to Duke that he doesn't have an answer for. She says, you hold tight to these ideals that they taught you. You believe in your country, but when your country stops believing in you, the questions become, who are you without them, and what do you want, Duke? Above the pit, Stalker meets with the prison transport, but discovers they're all dead. Now, how did this car get here when the driver and the passenger are clearly dead? Doesn't make much sense, but that doesn't matter. At that moment, Stalker sees a group of helicopters flying overhead and warns Rock and Roll over comms they have company. The fleet of helicopters is piloted by Major Bludd and his bloodhounds. He says, listen up, bloodhounds. No one can know we were here, so kill everyone. The facility shakes and Duke and company hear the trouble coming. Suddenly, Rock and Roll shows up injured. He frees Duke and Clutch and tells them that there has been a change of plans. They need to evacuate the facility, but need to find a way out without going up. They leave the Baroness to her fate until an explosion occurs, knocking out Rock and Roll and Clutch. The Bloodhounds fire at Duke. He pulls a Max Payne here, grabbing Rock and Roll's Desert Eagle, jumping to the side, taking out the squad of Bloodhounds. Duke frees the Baroness and hands her the Desert Eagle, telling her not to make him regret his decision. She leaves to find an exit as he goes to help Rock and Roll and Clutch. He tells Clutch to get Rock and Roll to safety, but out of nowhere, he gets hit in the head from behind by Major Bludd. Honestly, if Major Bludd had used his mechanical arm, that would have been the end of Duke. Duke hits him with an uppercut, calling him not a real man since he sucker punched him from behind. But Bludd responds, I do whatever it takes to win. Just like when I ambushed Burkhart and her nerds. Duke punches Major Bludd's mechanical arm and busts his hand in the process. But in that moment, he realizes Major Bludd just admitted he was the one who killed Dr. Burkhart. Bludd takes advantage of Duke's injury and state of shock and fires at his leg, putting him down. He asks Duke where Burkhart's device is that she gave him. And Duke feigns ignorance here, but Bludd isn't buying it. He reveals to Duke that he has a high bounty on his head and won't hesitate to go the extra mile to finish the job. Duke refuses to tell him anything. Bludd points his gun to Duke's head and then bang! Major Bludd gets shot in the back of the head by the Baroness. She points her gun at Duke while Clutch and Rock and Roll are fighting off the Bloodhounds and says, you heard the man. There's a huge bounty on your head. That's the end of the issue. I think we all know she's not going to kill Duke, but help him escape. Also, even though Major Bludd took a shot to the back of the head, I don't think he's dead. I think he's still alive and will come back with his classic eye patch and have an advanced cybernetic eye. He'll be like Kano from Mortal Kombat, which is funny because he's also Australian. We are close to the end of the Duke miniseries, only 2 more issues. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Check out the newest Transformers video right here. Other than that, have an awesome day, and always remember every day to go beyond.